السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه. أما بعد. The author rahimahullah in chapter number 3 from Kitab al-Jami', the comprehensive book, goes on to Babu Zuhdi wal Wara'. And Zuhd is that a person belittles in their heart anything that relates to the dunya and doesn't benefit them in the akhirah. Okay, anything that doesn't benefit them doesn't benefit them in the akhirah. And there's a slight discussion on the difference between zuhd and wara', and they're very similar in terms of meaning. And some of them said wara' is leaving that which potentially harms you in the akhirah, and zuhd is to leave anything that doesn't benefit in the akhirah. And based on that, which one would be the more general one? If zuhd was the one that if zuhd is leaving anything that doesn't benefit in the akhirah, and wara' is to leave things that harm you potentially in the akhirah, which one is more general? Zuhd is more general, isn't it? So you're leaving a lot more there, because things that are harmful are specific. Then even more than that, on top of that, there are things that don't benefit. Not necessarily harmful, but they don't benefit. And either way, note that it's an action of the heart. Okay, zuhd, wara' is actions of the inside, and of course physical actions by leaving certain things that are prohibited, or certain things that may be harmful in the next life. Yeah. So zuhd is this. A person can be very rich, because zuhd is sometimes mistaken to mean poor. Guy's poor, ripped up clothes, dirty clothes, okay, ripped up sandals, and he must be a person of zuhd. It's not the case. You can be the richest of people and be a person of zuhd and wara' and taqwa. Yeah, the key here is that it doesn't play with your heart and has such a strong position in your heart. Money's there, yeah, that's fine, I've got money, alhamdulillah. But it's not so, my heart is not so strongly attached to it. I can give it whenever I need to. I have no problem giving it. Yeah, my life isn't based on it. It starts with the first hadith, and this is an ocean of a hadith. And Abu Dawood rahimahullah, who says, I wrote with my own hand from the musnad, i.e. narrations that are complete, they're not broken off chains, 500,000 ahadith. I wrote 500,000 ahadith with my own hand. That's a huge number of hadith that he wrote down. And he says, rahimahullah, I looked into the ahadith of the musnad, and I found it 40,000 ahadith. And from it, I chose 4,000 ahadith in his book, the Sunan, about that, a bit more. And from it, I saw that 4 ahadith are a summary of everything that is contained there. The hadith of intention, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, and the hadith of دَعْ مَا يَرِيبُكَ إِلَى مَا لَا يَرِيبُكَ, leave that which concerns you for that which doesn't concern you. And مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ and the hadith of لَا يُؤْمِنُ أَحَدُكُمْ حَتَّى يُحِبَّ لِأَخِيهِ مَا يُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِهِ, and the hadith of إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ. And there are several other narrations. Some scholars said this hadith of intention, the hadith of Aisha also, which is the hadith number 5 in Al-Arba'in, which is the hadith of innovations, من أحدث في أمرنا هذا أو من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Okay, but the point is, this hadith is ginormous in terms of magnitude. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم says, عن النعمان بن بشير رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين. The halal is clear and the haram is clear. Okay, the halal is clear and the haram is clear. Now, the halal being clear and the haram being clear, that's a blessing. The whole religion, our whole religion is not one of cloudiness, where things are clouded. certain things that are clearly haram, certain things are clearly halal. Yeah? And this is very important. Okay, unlike modern mentality, where one thing is great one day, and 30 years' time, it's the greatest of evils. And the other way around. Yeah? Take the examples of marriage. Now marriage, the institute of marriage is being criticized. Before that was the way of love and family bonding and so on. Now it's criticized, it's attacked. And instead, all sorts of other things are recommended. Homosexuality, the other extreme. Yeah? If you were homosexual, you were mentally diseased, maybe 30 or 40 years ago. And the opposite is true now. If you're not homosexual, you're mentally diseased. Yeah, or at least if you're not a great fan of homosexuality, then you're mentally diseased. Yeah? So things change. So these are values. 30 years, they change that quickly. Yeah, and so this is the beauty about Islam. There are things that are principles and foundations that never change. From the time of the message of the Prophet ﷺ till Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will never change. And this is really important. If you see a person trying to change established rules in Islam, you know there's a problem. If you see that someone is trying to change rulings that are established and agreed upon by the scholars, and always have been agreed upon, and always will be agreed upon by those who are people of knowledge and taqwa, and they try and mess around with it, you know here this is the person to be careful of and avoid, most likely. Yeah? Because you are not going to know better than 100% of the ummah. And following the consensus of the ummah is an obligation. Just like it is haram to oppose the words of the Prophet ﷺ and the words of Allah, it is haram to oppose the consensus of the ummah. Yeah? It's important to understand. Opposing the consensus of the Muslims, of the scholars, is haram. Yeah? Opposing the consensus of the scholars is haram. It's not allowed. So if all the scholars agree that zina is haram, and alcohol is haram, and theft is haram, and homosexuality is haram, and so on, and taking off the hijab is haram, these are things that can't change. Be as modern as you want to be. These things will never change, and they won't change until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Yeah, so this is key to understand. However, there are other things that aren't as easy to understand and as clear. Yeah? وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ. Between them are doubtful matters. Between these are doubtful matters. These doubtful matters, are they known? Do we know these doubtful matters? Or do some people know them and some don't? Some do know them. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Many people don't know these mushtabihat. That means many other people do know them. And sometimes a person can know it and after that sometimes a person doesn't know a mutashabih and after that they know it. Okay? After that they do know it. Or maybe something seems clear, then they see something else that clouds it for them. Okay, makes them doubt again, not be sure. Okay, so these are things. Now the mutashabih, the scholars have spoken a lot about what exactly is a doubtful matter. What are the doubtful matters? Yeah, and there's a big discussion among scholars. So it's no blame on us if we don't fully comprehend it, because in itself is doubtful. What is doubtful is doubtful. Yeah, what exactly is the doubtful? It's a matter that requires precision and accuracy, because it's not just black and white. Okay, it's not just black and white. But generally speaking, the scholars say things that have an element, there is a reason to say this is close to the haram, and there is a reason to say that actually it's okay. So now it's sort of in between. As for things where you have no reason to say that it's haram, okay, but you're just worried, then that's waswasa, and there's no need for it. Okay? Or you are following a position held by a mujtahid, that the ummah has agreed is a mujtahid and a scholar, like one of the four madhahib, okay, or one of the scholars of these madhahib, then being doubtful about that is waswasa and a bid'ah. Yeah? Having waswasa about that is, or being doubtful about that is waswasa and is a bid'ah. Because the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before that directed us towards the people of knowledge. Okay, directed us towards the people of knowledge. And the consensus of the ummah is that certain scholars, certain madhahib are permissible to follow and ask. Yeah? Permissible to follow and ask. And there are conditions for people of ijtihad. So if you have done your job and you've asked a person of ijtihad and you followed a valid position, that's it. The biggest fitna, or one of the biggest problems we have today, is asking many, many people about the same issue. Ask this person. Alright, let's ask this guy. Okay, what does his madhab say? What does this madhab say? What does this madhab say? Yeah? Why? Ibn Qudama, you want to know all the opinions, and then you can, explain it to the people and teach and do tarjih. You don't need to know all this. Okay, we don't need to know all these things. It just confuses people. And this is why most of people's questions, they already have heard answers, but they just don't know which one to follow. Yeah? That's what causes so much confusion for many people. Had we made life easy for ourselves and simply asked the person we trust, and maybe we spoke about this issue of asking the person of knowledge before. Following one particular madhab is permissible. Yeah? It's not wajib, but it's permissible. And this is what most of the scholars say. And this is what al-Mardawi says in his Sharh of al-Tahrir, and this is the Hanbali madhab and the position of many scholars. That following a madhab is permissible. I.e., what does following madhab mean? It means whatever the Hanbali madhab says, I'm going to follow on every issue. Yeah? Whatever the Hanafi madhab says on every issue, I'm going to follow. Of course, you need to ask the Hanafi scholars and Hanbali scholars of that time, because sometimes what's in the books and what's in the fatwa are two different things. Sometimes, but you're asking people of knowledge. If you ask a person of knowledge who gives fatwa according to the Hanafi madhab, you say, Shaykh, what's the ruling of the Hanafi madhab according to X, Y, Z? And he says, this is it. Okay, I'm going to follow it. That's permissible, without doubt. That's permissible without doubt, except a shadh khilaf. Later on, some scholars held, but like I said, shadh means it opposes what the scholars before that had already agreed. Yeah? Or you ask any person you trust in terms of knowledge. I ask the same scholar. If you're in a country that has a person of knowledge who is someone who's fulfilled the conditions of fiqh and fatwa and being a jurist, and you say, look, he's the closest guy to me. Whenever I'm in trouble, I'm just going to ask him. That's also allowed. Whether he gives you a fatwa according to this madhab or that madhab, whatever it is. And similarly, you can find a scholar who you find at the time. Okay, this scholar's not available, let me ask somebody else. Or his opinion is not there on this issue, let me ask for the fatwa of somebody else. I want to follow. Yeah, that's all fine, on the condition that you're not picking and choosing what suits you. That's the only condition. That you're not picking and choosing what's comfortable and suitable for you, what's easy for you each time, but rather you are being sincere and genuine in wanting to follow Allah's guidance. And that is it. So when you have done that, you can never be in a doubtful issue. You can't now turn around and say, okay, I've asked the scholar, or this is the Hanafi madhab, or this is the Maliki madhab, but I'm now in doubt because I've heard other people say things. Let people say what they want to say. Let people say what they want to say. You have done what you've been asked to do, and so you are therefore out of the circle of doubt. Yes, is this clear? Because this is the biggest doubt that people have today. Asking many people. Yeah, you have and there was and this is not just one brother, it happens all the time. There's a brother who, in the space of 5 days, maybe asked about 8-9 people about exactly the same thing. And every time he asked another person, he became more confused. And the more he asked, the more confused he became. And then afterwards, he came to me, and he was extremely confused. And I didn't get rid of any of that confusion, because he already asked so many people before that. I'm only going to add to that confusion, in order to give you my own opinion. So all I could say was, listen, from all these people you ask, or anyone asks, you just ask one person who you trust the most, to give you the guidance of Allah. Whoever they tell you, you follow that, and that's it. And don't ask another person ever again. Okay, on this issue. And this is important, because it's caused problems today, especially in our day where everything is so widely available. Everyone writes a different Facebook status, everyone writes a different tweet, everyone writes a different WhatsApp message, everyone circulates a different post, and so on. People read all sorts of things all the time. The moment you read something, you become confused every time. Oh, we're going to be, in constant confusion, if that's the case. So it's not something that ought to be causing confusion. So where you are not there, not someone who has asked a scholar, not in a position where the halal is clear, not in a position where the haram is clear, but you're in doubt. There's an element of prohibited and there's an element of permission, and it's becoming a bit confusion. Here, the Prophet ﷺ says, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whoever keeps away from the doubtful matters, فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ, then he has protected his religion and honor, okay, preserved his religion and honor. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. Whoever falls into the doubtful matters, i.e. the one who follows these doubtful matters, has no problem falling into them, isn't careful with what they do and say and practice, وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ, will likely fall into the haram. Or the literal wording is, will fall into the haram. But the meaning is, will come very close to falling to the haram. Because we know it's not haram. Because if it was a definite haram, then it's haram already, basically. So it can't be haram. Every doubtful matter can't be haram, because the Prophet ﷺ gave it a separate category. So the haram, the halal, and here's the doubtful. But if you're constantly, okay, falling into these doubtful, then you're like the one who just isn't concerned about what they do. And so you'll very easily fall into the haram. Okay, very easily fall into the haram. كالراعي يرعى حول الحمى يوشك أن يرتع فيه ألا وإن لكل ملك حمى ألا وإن حمى الله محارمه. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, just as a shepherd who pastures his animals around a sanctuary, all but grazing therein, surely every king has a sanctuary, and Allah's sanctuary is his prohibitions. All it means is, if a shepherd brings his cattle too close to a certain place, okay, to a sanctuary, and back then that was for the leaders of the country at the time, that nobody was permitted to enter in. So if the shepherd brings his cattle too close, and obviously naturally they're going to enter. Yeah, the same example can be said with anything. If you get too close to something, you're very likely to fall into it. Yeah, get too close to the side of the road, very possibly you might fall and get hit. But get too close to the train tracks, very likely for you to, and so on. And the example is very clear. Okay, the example is very clear. ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة. This is now a separate part of the hadith, linked of course still, but a different sentence. ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة. Indeed, there is a piece of flesh in the body, or a morsel, or a piece in the body. إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله. If it is sound, then the whole body is sound. وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله. And if it is corrupt, then the whole body will be corrupt. ألا وهي القلب. Indeed, it is the heart. This is exceptionally important. By the body being corrupt, or by the body being corrected, what does that mean? What's the body? What's it referring to? What's the hadith referring to when it says the body? There's a piece of flesh in the body. If it is sound, the body will be sound.
Your actions.
Actions. Yeah? Actions. If the heart is sound, the body, i.e. the actions will be sound. Yeah? If the heart is sound, actions will be sound. The physical body might be sound, unsound, ill, tired, whatever. No effect. Yeah? But the point here is, actions will be sound. Or actions will be corrupt. And this is, I think, what we are missing today, very much. Yeah, there's very much a focus on outward and external actions and words and halal and haram and fiqh. Is this a sunnah? Is this a bid'ah? And narrations of hadith. All of these are excellent things, because it's brought people back to their religion, which is a very good thing and a very important thing, and that's the start. But it's also brought people back in a cold way, so that religion is practiced now in a very cold way. So if you're sat in circles of fiqh and you're learning about tawheed and learning about aqeedah and learning about hadith, all these amazing sciences in Islam, and a person's actions don't become better, a person's manners don't improve, a person's iman, a person's love of Allah doesn't increase, a person's love of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't increase. This is a real big problem with learning. That's if your heart doesn't become sounder and purer and purer. What then if your heart becomes harder and harder and harder from learning this knowledge? How much of a disaster is that? And that's what we see today. That's what we see today. A person learns a little bit on the science of hadith, so it teaches them what? Arrogance. A person learns a little bit on the science of aqeedah or tawheed, again, it teaches them pride. And it teaches them to attack people and backbite and criticize, okay, and question and look out for people's beliefs. What's your aqidah? What's your aqidah? What's this imam's aqidah? What's this? This is an innovation that scholars of the past never had. They never had this. Going around asking people what's his aqidah. The moment you mention someone's name, what's his aqidah? Might as well everyone have their name and aqidah next to it as their title. If that's going to be the case every time. Where does this come from? It's people's constant waswasa. They haven't been taught aqidah properly. So there's this constant worry. And so take things easy, akhi. Relax. The person studies aqidah so that iman increases. So that iman can increase and they can follow in the footsteps of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, whose iman wouldn't shake, and the rest of the Sahaba and the scholars of iman and taqwa. Their iman wouldn't shake in this time of doubt and confusion and time of people changing their religion every couple of minutes. That's what the aim of aqidah should be. A person learns aqidah so that prevents them from committing haram. Because as much as we do trying to prevent ourselves from haram, it's about our consciousness of Allah, and taqwa of Allah, and love of Allah, and fear of Allah. That prevents us from doing what we shouldn't be doing. That's what does the job. Yeah? We can do as much else as we want to do. And yes, the other methods, of maybe avoiding sins and getting out of bad habits, they might be useful, that's fine. But the essence of it is taqwa. And the essence of it is being conscious of Allah. Knowing Allah is watching, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to commit sin. And I don't want my heart to be poisoned. Because this heart is precious and it's weak at the same time. So if it's damaged, it's going to be a problem. So I'm going to avoid sin for this reason. That's what protects a person from committing sin. And that's the job of aqidah. That is the job of aqidah. Can't sit in a kitab al-tawheed class and then you go and commit sin. Study aqidah and then you backbite and slander. What kind of aqidah are you learning? And the same applies to fiqh. Yeah, so even though fiqh can be a topic that is very much, hard and cold, and sometimes you read the books of the fuqaha, it looks like they're robots. They don't have feelings, they don't have hearts, they're not human beings. They're talking about things in such a rigid, sort of manner. But even then, depending on your teacher, this can be a great boost of iman. Wallahi, if you look into the depths of the science of fiqh, that itself is an increase in iman. Because it's an amazing blessing that our religion has been explained and clarified in such a way. And we're not left to be confused, ever. Everything's made clear and easy, and everything's been sorted out, everyone's circumstances been catered for. That's a huge blessing. Huge blessing. Okay, and so it's all about the way we see things and look at things. And so this heart is essential. Now, when we commit a sin, and this is narrated from Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah and many others, when the word Sufyan is used like that by the scholars, they usually mean al-Thawri. When they say Sufyan al-Thawri, sometimes Ibn Uyayna, but generally it's Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah. And where he was asked about sins, and he said it's not the sin in and of itself that is the problem. Why? Because what sort of Lord do we have? A merciful and forgiving one. And as the narration goes, that had we been people who never committed sin, Allah would have gotten rid of us and created a creation that's committed sin so that they can repent to Him, so that He can forgive them. So everyone has their portion of sin decreed. And it's not something to destroy us and put us down. Why am I so rubbish? Look at the scholars of the past, they were amazing, they were perfect, and this and that, and look at me now, and look at other people, no one else. That's not something that was that. Everyone has their portion of sin decreed for them. And Allah has decreed for mankind to commit sin. But the issue is when we are attached to a sin, or certain sins. Okay, or it's a habit for us to commit those sins. And we constantly commit the same sin. Or we commit sin without care and recklessness. This is the problem. And it's not a problem in and of itself. That sin in and of itself is forgiven. Allah forgives. Like in the hadith, يَا ابْنَ آدَمْ إِنَّكَ لَوْ أَتَيْتَنِي بِقُرَابِ الْأَرْضِ خَطَايَا ثُمَّ اسْتَغْفَرْتَنِي غَفَرْتُ لَكَ. O son of Adam, if you come to me with the earth's sins, the size of the earth, and you came to me seeking forgiveness, I will forgive you. And in another narration, يَا ابْنَ آدَمْ إِنَّكَ لَوْ أَتَيْتَنِي بِقُرَابِ الْأَرْضِ خَطَايَا ثُمَّ لَقِيتَنِي لَا تُشْرِكُ بِي شَيْئًا. Then you came to me, not associating any partners with me, غَفَرْتُ لَكَ غَفَرْتُ لَكَ مَا كَانَ مِنْكَ وَلَا أُبَالِي. Yeah. Again, if you come to me, not associating any partners with me, I'll forgive everything that has passed for you, and that's easy for me. And I have no issue doing it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not that sin that is the problem. The problem with the sin is that it hits the heart. And it's like an arrow to the heart. So it damages and weakens the heart. So the next sin is easier to commit. And the next sin is easier to commit. And the next sin is easier to commit. And the next sin is easier to commit until we commit sins easily. Until committing sin becomes easily. And the minor sin leads to the next. And the greater until we fall into major sins. And this is where the harm of sins lie. And this is where the danger to the hearts lie. So when we're about to commit a sin, this is something we all need to think very carefully about. Yeah, and like I said, this is everyone. Whether it's student, whether it's teacher, whether it's faqih, whether it's jahid, whether it's person of iman or person of sin, everyone has their portion of sins written, regardless of who they are. Yeah, regardless of who that person is. And so all of us need to think before we commit a sin and sacrifice the enjoyment of that sin over the sacrifice of the heart. Because once the heart is damaged, we are damaged. Once the heart is damaged, we are damaged. And there's no worse life than one which has no discipline. One where you can't get yourself to do acts of worship. Because don't think doing an act of worship is about desire and you want to do it and you'll just do it like that. It's not like that. Doing good deeds is not about us wanting to do. Who doesn't want to do good deeds? All of us want to do good deeds. All of us wish we could recite Quran a lot. All of us wish we could remember Allah a lot. All of us wish we could stand at night and pray. We all want that. We all want that. Yeah, and all of us have tried to some extent to do many good. But what's the difference between those who do it for 50, 60 years consecutively, consistently, without a single day passing by? They've prayed at night, they've recited the Quran and so on. And Shaykh Muhammad al-Hasan al-Dadawi al-Shanqiti, Hafidhahullah, he once went without sleep for 2 hours. Went without sleep for 2 days. And one of his students was with him. So he was about to pray a few rak'ahs just before they got to the hotel. When they got to the hotel, just before they were going to sleep, he said, look, the Shaykh said to the student, I'm extremely tired. So I'm just going to pray a few rak'ahs today. So the student was like, Alhamdulillah, I'm knackered and I want to sleep now. So he said, he prayed with us an hour and a half. Prayed with us an hour and a half, and then he slept. And the student was like, I was just dozing off for the whole hour and a half, didn't have a clue what he recited. If an hour and a half at night is, what you do after 48 hours of sleep, when you are, extremely tired, then what does Shaykh do normally? When he's healthy and fit and so on. So what is it that gets them to do it so consistently? Even though we want to do that. But what is it that gets them to do it consistently? It is this. Their hearts are strong and sound. Yeah, and this is really important to understand. The moment we, put a barrier between us and committing sin, as some of the shuyukh describe it, it is like cutting off strings from a bird that can't fly. If you cut off one string, it's still attached to the strings, and so it can't fly still. And another, until it is completely free from all of those strings, then it can fly. After that. Similarly, sins are like this. They put us down, keep us weak. Want to do good deeds, want to, I might do it one day, it stops again, Ramadan comes, on and off Ramadan, and after Ramadan, down again. And consistency comes with the heart being sound. And what makes the heart sound is doing good deeds, having taqwa of Allah and sincerity, and keeping away from sins. Sins are the destroyer of hearts. Sins are the destroyers of hearts. And they're really dangerous. And this is their danger. That sin Allah has been disobeyed with, sins 1,000 times worse. People have said, I am Allah. People have mocked Allah and mocked His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mocked His religion, and committed sins that no one can imagine. So when a person looks at haram, or says something haram, or listens to something haram, and so on, do you think that's big in comparison to what other people have done? But we don't look at it in that way. Of course, a person who realizes the magnitude of Allah sees it as big, even then. Sees it as major, not belittling the sins. But what is greater and what is more of a danger for us, I'm talking about us, is the effect of the sin. Okay, it's the effect of the sin that is dangerous. And so it's something that we really need to be careful about. The heart, the heart, the heart. Never sacrifice our hearts for anything. Committing sin, I would rather, not have that enjoyment for 50 years than have an arrow hit my heart and damage me, and God, Allah knows whether I'm going to get back up and be able to recover from those sins or not. So that's something very important to keep in mind. Is that clear? Yeah, where the danger of sin comes from. And that's why we push ourselves and we never give up, even if a person has tried to avoid sins for 10 or 15 years. Alhamdulillah. If we spend our whole life battling against the shaitan and battling against hawa, desires, and battling against personal inclinations, we've succeeded. That in itself is success. That itself is a success. And the harder we push, and the more sincere, and the more we rely upon Allah, the quicker Allah makes things easy for us, and He purifies our hearts, and then makes the path of uprightness and taqwa an easy one. An easy one. Yeah? When taqwa and iman and good deeds become a habit, becomes part of us, it becomes easy. And that's why I ask someone who doesn't wake up to pray at night, when they have been doing so for years. They can't imagine it. What's the problem? Stand up, pray at night, see, what's the issue? Just standing up, pray at night, you can go back to sleep another time. Okay, to them it's a piece of cake. So what's the difference? Okay, it's this. Heart has been trained, so they've got themselves into the habit, then the heart has been protected, not allowed to be damaged with sins, and therefore they've been able to continue in their path of taqwa and uprightness. May Allah make us all from people of taqwa and iman. The following hadith, وعن ابن عمر.
Just about the wording of the hadith, and when we took in Imam Nawawi, I'm not sure if there's mistakes. بينما أمور مشتبهات.
Sorry?
Isn't there وبينهما أمور مشتبهات?
وبينهما أمور.
But here there's no أمور. I don't know whether there's a mistake.
لا, it's just the wording of the hadith. وبينهما مشتبهات. Between them are doubtful matters, or between them are the doubtful. According to that. أو وبينهما أمور مشتبهات. Between them are doubtful matters. So the addition of umur matters. It's a light addition. It doesn't affect the meaning of the hadith. طيب. عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تعس عبد الدينار والدرهم والقطيفة إن أعطي رضي وإن لم يعطى لم يرضى أخرجه البخاري أو وإن لم يعطى لم يرض, because you're stopping on the sukun. تعس عبد الدينار والدرهم. Here the Prophet ﷺ says he's wretched. Wretched is the slave of the dinar and the dirham and the plush cloth. Okay? And he then goes on to describe this person who is a slave of the dinar and dirham. It says, if such a person is given from the desires of the dunya, like wealth and clothing, etc., he's pleased. And if he's not given, he's not pleased. If he's not given, he's not pleased. Yeah? Grateful when things are given to him, ungrateful, okay, and staunch when things don't go his way when it comes to the dunya. I.e., his heart is purely attached to the dunya. Money or no money. If there's money, I'm happy. If there's no money, I'm distressed and sad. Yeah? And he's wretched in the dunya and the akhirah. And this is why you'll find that when we chase the dunya, that's when we are most stressed out. Okay? Most stress comes from chasing the dunya and making the dunya so great. Forget the akhirah. The akhirah is a whole other story. If we haven't succeeded in this dunya. It's the dunya itself. When a person's heart is attached to the dunya, everything becomes a problem. Person loses 20 quid, they make a huge fuss over it. Something happens to their phone, they make a massive fuss over it. okay, bits of wealth, they become extremely angry. They sacrifice their character. And they sacrifice their iman. And they sacrifice their religion just for the sake of small bits of wealth. Leave small bits of wealth. Not going to benefit us in this life or the next life. And wealth comes and goes anyway. Who's had money in there for 50 years, stayed there and hasn't moved? That's not beneficial in the first place. But money is always coming in and out and in and out. And it's being used. And then you get some more money and it's used again and you get some more money. And your money has been decreed for you. As we know from which hadith? From the Arba'in. Hadith number? Who's the narrator? Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says that it's the hadith of the 40 days. إن أحدكم يجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك ثم يرسل إليه الملك. Then the angel is sent to him and 4 things are written down. كتب رزقه. The first thing that's written down is his rizq, his wealth. It's all decreed anyway. The amount of rizq that we get is decreed. Okay? And so it's not worth making a huge fuss of it. You work hard. Don't be imbalanced and say, because it's decreed, I'm not going to do anything. Work hard to get what you can. Work hard to be rich. Work hard to be a billionaire. That's great for the Muslim community. We're not going to be complaining, because you're rich. That's a great thing. But, like we said, not have your heart attached to it. Because it becomes the biggest thing the biggest concern in life. Hadith number? Hadith number 4. Good. Okay. Who narrates it? 2 Imams. Al-Bukhari and Muslim. The first couple of hadith are almost all Al-Bukhari and Muslim, other than the second hadith. طيب. The next hadith. عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي فقال كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu says, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam caught hold of my shoulders and said, Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib. Be in this dunya as though you're a stranger. Aw abiru sabil. And what is the connection between a Muslim in this life and between a stranger? Why is it recommended to be a stranger? What similarity is there that we have in this life between a stranger or a wayfarer or abiru sabil, someone just passing by?
This isn't our destined place.
Okay, it's not the place that we stay in. It's not our place that we're staying in. And that should be manifested in the way that we live our life. We're not going to stay here forever. So small petty things are not worth it. Small petty things are not worth it. Small disputes between people, we're not going to be here forever. They should be overlooked, passed by. Okay, they should be overlooked and passed by. If you're traveling, okay, you're just passing by, you don't care about what happens in that place. You're just passing by anyway. I'm not going to sit here and get myself a house just so I can relax for a day or two. No. Just passing by, okay, quickly find myself a place to stay over, hotel, something light, some light food and so on. Bismillah, let's go. That's it. My mind is still in the destination, always. A traveler never has their mind on the transit sort of place. If I'm traveling from London to Mecca, for example, I'm passing by, where do we usually pass by? Egypt? Turkey, okay. Turkey, Egypt, wherever it is, Qatar, Bahrain, wherever it is, the airplane stops. My mind is not on Egypt. I couldn't care less about Egypt. And I couldn't care less about Turkey or anything other place. My mind is always on Jeddah, where I'm going to land. Okay, and even after that, Mecca, which is my main destination. It's the same here. Throughout the whole journey, even though I might buy some things on my journey, I might eat and drink and sleep, and I might, stay a day or two in Turkey or wherever it is. My mind is never on that place. It is always on the destination. And so similarly, even though in this dunya we eat and drink and live and relax and establish families and households and work and do this and do that, we're part of a community and we feel at home and we have friends and loved ones and so on, the mind is always on the destination. Yeah, the mind is always on the destination. This is a new phone, so don't ask me about this ringtone. And I didn't buy it because I can't afford this one. This is a gift. Just silence it properly. Okay. So this is where the similarity lies. The mind is always on the destination. The mind is always on the destination. Even though we have a portion in the dunya, yes, without question, but the mind is always on the destination. Oh, subhanAllah. Then Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, and one other important thing that is very important is whenever we feel that we are sort of strange in the community, or that everyone else is sort of against us, as the Muslims maybe now feel. Everyone's against us, we feel like the odd ones out, we have these beliefs, no one else agrees with us. Even within the Muslims, we're strange. Even within the Muslim community, we're the strange ones. We're the strict ones, we're the aggressive ones, we're, the conservative ones, we're the backward ones, we're the, this and so on. The person who is traveling, passing by, he's not going to care less what people around him say in that place. Because his mind is on the destination. So yes, there can be a bit of hardship. There can be a small bit of, but it's going to be a day. It's a day or two. And this dunya compared to the akhirah is less than a day or two. It's less than a day or two. And it will feel like nothing. And take the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he says that the most wretched of people in this dunya, the person who had the most amount of difficulty, poverty, illness, suffering and so on, is entered into Jannah for a split second. Then he's asked, have you ever seen any hardships? He says, Wallahi, I've never seen hardship. He swears by Allah that he's never seen a hardship. Then the opposite is done also. He takes a person from the most blessed of people and he enters him into Jahannam for a split second. And he says to him, have you ever seen any goodness? He says, by Allah, I've never seen goodness.
Another hadith about Islam began as something strange and returns to strange, something Fettah is strange. You think we're living in that time today?
Wallahi, it could be. And it's not necessarily a specific time or a couple of hundred years. This is the era of the strangers, necessarily. It's a case of it gets stranger and stranger and stranger, and it's something that is subjective. And one time is stranger than another time. But now there's no doubt an element of that. And the biggest sign of that is even amongst Muslims we feel sometimes that we are only ones who want to practice Islam. The only ones who want to practice their religion. Yeah. And so, like I said, even though these elements come into it, and sometimes there's difficulty in practicing the religion, and it's tough. Being upon the straight path is not easy. In the time that we're in, it's not easy, it's difficult. And it takes effort, and it takes repeated efforts. Over and over and over again. But again, it's a small period of time, it's not something worth, losing sleep over. Because the destination is near, and the destination is far greater. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. And the akhirah is greater and much more longer lasting. Yeah, and this has to be in front of our eyes throughout our life. Then Ibn Umar radiallahu anh says, كَانَ يَقول, it's narrated that Ibn Umar used to say, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ. When you, wake up in the morning, then don't wait for the evening. I.e., rush to do good deeds. You're a traveler. You rush quickly. Okay, you're just passing by. And in the evening, don't wait for the morning. In other words, be quick to do goodness. And be quick also to avoid evil. Because the period is short. وَخُذْ مِنْ صِحَّتِكَ لِسَقَمِكَ أَوْ لِمَرَضِكَ. And take from your health to your illness. Make use of your health before time of illness comes. وَخُذْ مِنْ صِحَّتِكَ لِمَرَضِكَ وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ. And from your life to your death. I.e., act in your life before death comes, and acting is too late after that. Acting is too late after that. أخرجه البخاري. So this was an addition as a sort of tafsir from Ibn Umar to what the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said. وعن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من تشبه بقوم فهو منهم أخرجه أبو داود وصححه ابن حبان. And this hadith here, whoever imitates a people is one of them. Whoever imitates a people is one of them. Graded by Ibn Hibban as authentic. And many of the muhaddithin consider it a weak hadith. Okay? Many of the muhaddithin consider it a weak hadith. And this hadith, in terms of meaning, however, is is applicable either way. Whether it's weak or authentic, it's applicable. And man tashabbaha biqawmin, whoever imitates a people, he's from them. And the reason being, i.e., whoever imitates a people is from them, that the literal wording would indicate that person has left the fold of Islam. If you imitate Christians, then you're a Christian. You imitate Jews, then you're a Jew. You imitate these people, then you're like them. And that's not the meaning by ijma'. That's not the meaning of the hadith by ijma'. But it is sinful, or at the very least disliked, to imitate another people, and that is imitation. Pay attention to this, because this is the topic that causes confusion for a lot of people. Imitation of other people means that you do things that are specific to them. Okay? You do things that are specific to them. For example, certain types of haircut. Who has those certain types of haircut? This group of people. It's this sort of people. Yeah? What we see today, for example, someone slashes their eyebrow to dash in the eyebrow, and hairstyles, with writing on them and so on, etc. Are the Imams of the Masjid who all have that kind of haircut? Are the Hafaz of the Quran, generally, no? Is it the pious? Is it the scholars and so on who have that? No, who is it? It's people who are drenched in the dunya, who are into that kind of stuff. So it's specific to them. It's specific to them. So in this case, you avoid that kind of thing. You avoid that kind of thing, and you don't, imitate them in that. Which sort of women are the ones who dress in a certain way? Okay, have their, outward appearance done in a certain way. If it's specific to certain women who are not exactly the best role models, then again you avoid that kind of thing. You should want to avoid it in the first place. Out of Iman, you should say, I don't want to look like that kind of person. I don't want to be like that person. Because remember, it's specific to them. So you're throwing yourself into that category. And this is what it means. If this thing is not specific to that category of people, then in this case the ruling doesn't apply. So a person now, common issues are, for example, some people are upset with women wearing wedding dresses. The typical white wedding dress and the black suit and so on, tie. Is that specific to the disbelievers? Is it just them who wear it? Everyone wears it. Everyone wears it. Maybe you have a sheikh who gets married later on. You might say, I want to wear suit and tie like everyone else for my wedding. So it's not something specific to them, and therefore there's no issue with it. You can't use the argument and say that's imitating the disbelievers. Wearing the wedding ring, similarly. I'm saying imitating the disbelievers. That's something that's widespread. Okay, it's common, and so on. Yeah. So long as, of course, it doesn't oppose the clear rulings of the Sharia, then the point is you can't use the argument of imitation unless it is specific to a certain category of people. It might be haram for another reason. Yes, it might be prohibited, this action, for a different reason, not for that reason. So now, is playing music at weddings, is that imitating the disbelievers?
No.
Probably Muslims have it.
No.
So now can we say, because it's not imitating of the disbelievers, because it's not just them who have it, therefore it's okay? The answer is no, because it's prohibited for another reason, and that is the sunnah and the ijma' of the ummah. Okay? Or almost the ijma' of the ummah. So don't think that because there's no imitation, therefore there's no prohibition. But the point is, the imitation itself cannot be used. And like I said, some scholars weaken this hadith, and that's why there is a difference on whether imitation is completely prohibited, as was chosen by Shaykh Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, or is makruh. Makruh, of course, this is without a belief in the heart. Certain beliefs in the heart will make something haram, but just outward tashabbuh with people, is it prohibited completely or makruh? And the madhab of the Hanabila is makruh, generally speaking, and there are times when it can become prohibited. But Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah prefers the position that it's haram, assuming that he authenticates this hadith. And if it is, if the hadith is authenticated, then the words of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and he says the bare minimum of this hadith is that it's haram at the very least. And if this hadith is to be authenticated, there's not really much else to go, because it's almost a clear text on prohibition. But if the scholars don't, then there is room for saying it is makruh to imitate the disbelievers. That doesn't mean it's always makruh. It can become prohibited depending on how this thing that's being done and how close the imitation is and who is being imitated and so on. Because imitating the Jews and imitating the disbelievers is not the same as imitating footballers and imitating rap, singers and so on. Yeah.
Does this hadith always have to be taken in the negative, like it can't be the opposite, can't be said?
Excellent, very good. Jazakallah khair. And generally, the scholars, speak about, or generally, when we talk about this narration, we always talk about the negative side of it. And Jazakallah khair. The positive side is one that is correct by consensus, and valid by ijma'. I.e., if you imitate certain people, then you're with them. And there's an even more explicit hadith than that the Prophet ﷺ says that a person is with those who he loves on the Day of Judgment. A person is with those that they love who they love on the Day of Judgment. And in this time that we're weak and so on, our love for knowledge and our love for scholars and our love for Allah and the Messenger ﷺ, and if we have a genuine love for the Salaf of this ummah, and As-Safarini rahimahullah, one of the Imams of the Hanabila, whenever he used to talk about the scholars of the past, he would start shedding tears. Just mentioning their names, he would start shedding tears. Because they're the ones who are the guides, they're the ones who have worked day and night for the sake of our guidance, for the sake of this religion, and so they are deserving of our constant dua and honouring and respect. So if a person isn't quite at the level that they wish they could be, our love for them, inshaAllah, will save us on the Day of Judgment. And don't hesitate with that. Whenever we put down, whenever we are put down, then we have this trust in Allah. Okay, yes, I'm weak and I'm this and I'm that, but I love the Imams of knowledge and I love the Sahaba, and I'll defend them with all my heart and with all my life. And that is probably one of the acts of worship for those who really love the Salaf. That's an act of worship. That is potentially the one thing that enters us into Jannah on the Day of Judgment and saves us from the punishment of the Akhirah. Jazakallah khair for that point. It's a very useful and important point to keep in mind. وعن ابن عباس قال كنت خلف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يوما فقال يا غلام. I was behind the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم one day, so he said, يا غلام, O young man, احفظ الله يحفظك احفظ الله تجده تجاهك إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله. رواه الترمذي وقال حديث حسن صحيح. Hasan Sahih means what? If a hadith is Sahih, then it is authentic. A hadith is either, the later scholars of hadith consider it either Sahih or Hasan or Da'if. And Da'if is many grades, and Sahih is of course also many grades, and so is the Hasan, is grades. So when he says Hasan Sahih, and it's a Tirmidhi who became known for this terminology, what does he mean?
Because of supporting narrations? Or
so it's Hasan and it becomes strengthened and becomes Sahih. What if there's only one narration? Only one chain?
No, it doesn't satisfy the conditions of Sahih, but it's open to...
Okay, so some scholars said if there are several narrations Some are hasan, some are sahih. Simple as that. Okay? Because one hadith, we read a hadith like this, for us it's just one hadith. For the Imams of hadith, this is 500 a hadith maybe. Because of all these different chains of narration. All of them with to the same hadith. One is sahih, one is da'if, one is hasan, one is extremely authentic, one is mutawatir maybe. And one is da'if. It's about the chain of narration.
What if it just has one chain?
So now if it has more than one, some are hasan, some are sahih, some scholars say. And if it has just the one, then some of the Imams of hadith say he means, some have considered it sahih, and some Imams have considered it hasan, because the scholars can disagree on the authenticity of hadith, as we just saw with the one before it. مَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ فَهُوَ مِنْهُمْ. And the Prophet ﷺ says to Ibn Abbas here, how old was Ibn Abbas at this time? How old was he when the Prophet ﷺ died?
Very young.
How young?
13.
13, possibly 14, and at most 15. Yeah, very young. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Ibn Abbas was very young. And yet he was considered a scholar. He was a scholar of the Sahaba. He was the mufassir of the Sahaba. And he was one of the muftis of the Sahaba at a very young age. And Umar would consult him at such a young age. He was younger than everyone here. Yeah, radiyallahu anhu. And so now the Prophet ﷺ is trusting him to take on this major piece of advice. Despite his young age, possibly 12 or 13 or 14. Despite his young age, he passed on this message to him. And this needs to be revived in our community. That we don't accept, the claim that we become mature at the age of 18, or you become an adult at the age of 21, or you only become an adult and you have to only start becoming mature after you get married, or after you have children. Where does this come from? The moment we hit the age of puberty, you're a man. The moment you hit the age of Bulugh, you're a man or a woman. Automatically. Held to account for your goods and held to account for your evils. And so there's no room for saying still young at 18 and so on. No. The moment this happens, we become mature. And maturity needs to be revived a lot more in our community, because it's taken very long for us to mature. Very late. People are 30 and they act like 15. Or 40 and they act like even younger than that. No, it's not. It's embarrassing. It's not acceptable. That doesn't mean become boring. Yeah? Become boring and never enjoy yourself, and never laugh, and never joke around and so on. You can do that at whatever age. There's no limit to that. That's fine. But there's something called boundaries. And there's something called maturity. Some things are appropriate, some things are not. Some things are okay, some things are not. Sometimes it's time to say something funny, sometimes it's time to be serious. Yeah? And so this is important to keep in mind. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma and many of the Sahaba were excellent examples of this. Young age and yet sound-minded. The intellect of a 40 or 50-year-old. Person of knowledge, not any 40 or 50-year-old. Sound, strong intellect, despite that young age. Sound opinions, sound advice that they give. It's amazing at that age compared to, sort of our condition now. So it's something that we sort of push ourselves with to catch up with. Now he says to him, احفظ الله يحفظك. Ihfad means, ihfad and ihfad, the same word for yourself and the same word for Allah is used. And it means keep mindful of Allah. And ihfad, i.e. protect. That's what ihfad means, protect. Protect what? Protect your consciousness of Allah and protect Allah's command, i.e. follow it and stick to it. Stick to Allah's command, be conscious of Allah, yahfadk, and Allah will protect you and be mindful of you and be there for you whenever you're in need. Ihfadillah, follow the commands of Allah, keep consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be mindful of Him all the time. Tajidhu tujahak, you will find Him in front of you. And this is essential, because sometimes we don't do that. We don't follow the commands of Allah, and we don't, we're not mindful of Allah, and we rely on dua only in Ramadan, for example, or on Friday, just before Maghrib, and so on. And that's not, as strong and effective. The most effective form of dua is to be mindful of Allah, and to stick to His commands and to avoid His prohibitions. When a person becomes like that, Allah is there for them automatically. Even if you don't say a single word of dua, Allah is there for that person. Because Allah knows what you want. You're not going to explain to Allah what you want. When we make dua, we're doing an act of worship. When we make dua, we are doing an act of worship to benefit ourselves. Okay, and to show humility towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not telling Allah what we need. Allah is the one who created us and knows what we need before we were born. Yeah, and this is important to keep in mind, because sometimes when we make dua, okay, we sort of say, let me explain this dua properly, as though it needs explanation, so it's understood properly, and just in case, it's misunderstood and I don't get the wrong answer back. And, none of this is there. If we don't say a word, Allah knows what's in our hearts and what we want, and exactly what we want better than us. Sometimes we don't know what we want exactly, and Allah knows exactly what we want. So we need to understand that when we make dua, it's not to explain to Allah what we're asking for. Okay, it's a sign of humility and it's an act of worship. But even more than that, and even stronger than that, is keeping mindful of Allah, and sticking to His commands and avoiding His prohibitions. When we are there, when we are at times of ease, when we're at times of difficulty, Allah is there for us automatically. Allah is there for us automatically. The dua is just an extra act of worship. The dua is just an extra command Allah's commanded us with, and that's why we do it. It's a command of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's why we do it. It increases in humility, increases in ikhlas, increases in iman. That's why we do it. It's not an explanation to Allah about what we need. إذا سألت فاستعن إذا سألت فاسأل الله. If you ask, then ask Allah. وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله. Whenever you ask Allah. Ask Allah alone. وإذا استعنت, whenever you rely upon someone, rely upon Allah alone. فاستعن بالله. He's saying this to a 14-year-old. If you ask Allah. And if you rely, then rely upon Allah. And this is major. This is major. Because what this feeling of tawakkul in the heart does, it automatically invalidates and belittles everything other than Allah. Every human, every being, everything in this dunya becomes small. Because your reliance is totally upon Allah. And this is important when doing ruqyah, for example. And this is important when we seek something that we want. Ruqyah, it's important because sometimes a person thinks, who's gonna, if it's ruqyah for the sake of mess, jinn being inside a person as an example. Sometimes we have, we might think that it's this jinn who we're waiting for to answer us to leave. Leave this person, please leave, okay brother, and so on. As though it's in his power. He's the powerful one, they're the strong ones, and so on. Same when we're committing sin. It's like the shayateen are in control of us. No, they're not in control of anything. And that's why rule number 1 when giving ruqyah, if anyone does or whatever, ruqyah to yourself or to a family member or whatever else, rule number 1 is la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power, no will except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not you reciting Quran. Don't think you're some pious person. The sins that we've committed are unbelievable. Don't think that if we are committed, making ruqyah suddenly we are special. No. It's just a way to seek Allah's pleasure and help. That's it. And that is what is effective. It's the reliance upon Allah that's effective. When we're seeking something in the dunya or the akhirah, whatever it is, it's the relying upon Allah that's effective. Not anyone else. Very important. Not anyone else. If we want happiness, if we want whatever it is not in the hands of a human being. It is not in the hands of a human being. No human will make you happy. No human will make us successful. No human will give us what we want. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that prevents. La mani'a, as we hear in Ramadan every night. La mani'a lima atayt wa la mu'tiya lima mana'at. Nothing that you have given can be prevented, and nothing that you prevent can be given. And this is essential. This is essential. We do that which is necessary to get what we need, but the one thing that is in mind and the heart is attached to Allah alone subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we are working hard to make money, for example, the heart is attached to Allah. Always. He's the one who gives, He's the one who prevents. If we're going out to get married, for example, He's the one who gives, He's the one who prevents. Not the girl's dad is the one who's going to decide whether you're going to be happy or not. If he says yes, alhamdulillah, I'm going to be blessed. And no, who said that? It might be a niqmah, a curse for you, this person and this family. You don't put power into people's hands. People have no power. People have no power. Yeah, we do not have power. We have to understand this. We humble ourselves more than we want to. We are not as powerful as we think, and neither is any human being. As rich as they are, as special as they are, as many daughters as this guy has, as many jobs as he has available, whatever it is, it's not this person. Yeah, it's not this person. Allah is the one who makes things easy. We work hard to get the benefits of the dunya, the masalih of this dunya. We work hard to get them, okay? Put the effort in, whether it's wealth, whether it's a job, whether it's this, whether it's that, whether it's knowledge, okay, whatever it is. But it comes from Allah. And since we are in a circle of knowledge, knowledge comes from Allah. Again, knowledge comes from Allah. It is not the reading of a book. It's not buying a book that's going to give us knowledge. Buying a book has never given anyone knowledge. Okay? Having a playlist on YouTube has never given anyone knowledge. Having access to books online has never given anyone knowledge. Even attending circles is not explicitly the thing that gives knowledge. Yeah, Allah gives a person knowledge. And this is why two people are in the same circle. One of them becomes an alim and benefits people, and the other one is unheard of. These major scholars that we know of, were they the only ones who were students? They had massive gatherings. So why is there only one or two or three that became well known and their books were written down and they're the ones who we talk about and they're the ones we benefit from? Where are the rest of them? Ahmed had 5,000 people at his gathering. None of them used to write a single word. They would just benefit from his character and adab. 5,000 people just for that. Where are all these people? Who are they? Some of them were Abu Dawood. And some of them were unheard of. Some of them, maybe their grandchildren didn't hear of them. So it's not the outward things that we do that give us knowledge. Okay, it is sincerity. Sincerity is what gives us knowledge. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ Taqwa. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ Have taqwa of Allah. Always be mindful of Allah, and Allah will teach you. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ And in another verse, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِن تَتَّقُوا اللَّهَ O you who believe, if you keep mindful of Allah, يَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ فُرْقَانًا He will create for you a furqan, a light that helps you to distinguish between truth and falsehood. Yeah? Which is knowledge. Yeah, which is knowledge. That's what helps you to distinguish between truth and falsehood, good and evil. So it's taqwa and hard work and reliance upon Allah that gives us what we want and the things that we need. There are a couple of more ahadith. It's been about an hour, so we will suffice with that, inshallah. And we'll continue the rest of the chapter next lesson, inshallah, which is whenever we agree on the WhatsApp group, whatever we sort of agree. That's what we'll go with, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
Okay. Does anyone have a point to say? I mentioned.
This is probably to do with the chapter that we did last time.
Yeah.
The hadith is about two brothers who don't have something between them for more than 3 days. So is it permissible for a person to sort of cut back relationship with someone who's not a relative because they don't want to carry on speaking to them for whatever reason?
Okay, but why?
They find them annoying.
Okay, so they find the person annoying, so they don't want to, there's a difference between not talking to someone and between cutting relationships. Yeah, okay. Cutting a tie, okay, turning away from someone, and not talking to someone, two different things. There are some people I haven't spoken to for years. I haven't, cut ties with them. Just haven't spoken to them because we haven't had the chance to. Okay, so if someone's annoying, you put yourself in a situation where you don't have to be around them, and you have to talk to them. Yeah, that's different from a dispute and heated exchange of words, and then you turn away from each other, and from then on you never talk to each other again. This is a form of turning away, as the narration that we covered goes. يُعْرِضُ هَذَا وَيُعْرِضُ هَذَا This one turns away and this one turns away when they meet each other. Okay, there's an active turning away from each other. That's different from that guy's there. Let me quickly go home. okay, let me quickly pop into the car, or let me quickly pray salah, quickly pray salah so that he doesn't, come and talk to me. That's a different thing. It doesn't come under the hadith. It doesn't come under the hadith. Allahu A'lam.
There's another hadith of Ibn Abbas about the 70,000 that to Jannah without Ustadh. Says they don't ask for ruqya. Someone offers you ruqya. Is it okay to take it? If you don't ask for it, but someone offers.
No, that's fine. لا يسترقون طلب الرقية. Scholars say asking for ruqya. Those who don't ask for ruqya. طيب. الله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله.